All right, let's talk about a huge, multi-million pound problem that just keeps happening in the facilities management world. Vendor relationships that just fall apart. You know the ones. And the crazy part? You probably think everything's going great. You look at your dashboards, you see all those green lights, and you feel secure. Well, what if I told you those green lights might be the biggest red flag you've got? Let's get into it.
So let's just kick things off with a number that should honestly make you sit up and pay attention: 73%. Get this. According to industry analysis, almost 3/4 of all outsourcing failures have nothing to do with technical skills or hitting performance numbers. Nope. It all comes down to the relationship breaking down. And this quote from the white paper we're looking at just hits the nail on the head. It says trust breakdown is the #1 cause of failure. Not cost, not competence, trust. It's like this invisible crack forming right under your feet. By the time you actually feel the ground shake, well, it's probably way too late to do anything about it. Okay, so this brings up a really fascinating question, right? A paradox, really. How can your relationship with a vendor be completely falling apart when your dashboard is just a sea of green check marks? Your data's telling you one thing, but reality, that's a whole different story. And that's exactly the mystery we're going to solve today. So what's the solution? Well, the key is to stop looking backward at old data and start looking for predictive behavioral clues. And that's where this really smart framework for monitoring contracts comes into play. It forces us to look at the things that actually predict whether a partnership will succeed or fail. So let's jump right in and look at the top 2 most important dimensions. Now, check this out, because this is what's so powerful about this framework. Look at the weighting. This isn't just guesswork. It's based on a ton of analysis of what really makes or breaks these contracts. Outcome alignment gets the biggest slice of the pie at 25%, with performance delivery right behind it at 20%. These numbers tell a story, and it's a super important one. So let's talk about the big one, the real North Star of the relationship: outcome alignment. Look, this isn't about the small stuff, like whether a vendor fixed a leaky pipe within the 4-hour SLA. It's about the why. Why did you hire them? Are they actually helping you hit those big strategic goals you set out to achieve? You know, the innovation, the transformation, the stuff that really matters. So how do you know if you're out of alignment? Well, you've got to look for the red flags. Ask yourself this: is your vendor just doing the bare minimum to not get in trouble? Are they always finding excuses for missing those big milestones? And here's the real test. Pull one of their team aside and ask them how what they do every day actually helps your company's bigger goals. If they just stare at you blankly, you've got a serious problem. And that brings us to the second dimension: performance delivery. And wow, this slide just perfectly captures that paradox we talked about at the beginning. On the surface, everything looks amazing. 95% SLA compliance, green metrics everywhere. The contract is performing. But what's really happening underneath? Trust is evaporating. Communication is getting tense and defensive. The vendor is basically checking out. And here's the absolute key takeaway. Those high performance scores can be a complete illusion. They only tell you what's already happened. What don't they tell you? They don't tell you that your vendor just swapped out their best manager for a rookie, or that they're deliberately not telling you about a potential building issue because it would cost them money. See, this is why just staring at KPIs can be so dangerous. All right, let's shift gears a little. I want to talk about the third most critical dimension, which is called expert responsibilities. Now, for this part, let's put on our thinking caps. This is kind of a professor's corner moment, because we're going to dive into a really profound concept called the duty to warn. So what exactly is this duty to warn? Well, put simply, it's your vendor's professional obligation to tell you things you might not want to hear. Think about it. You hired them because they're the experts, right? Well, that expertise comes with a responsibility to be proactive, to spot risks you can't see, and to warn you about them. They're supposed to be a true partner, not just someone who sits around waiting for instructions. And this quote from the source material really just says it all, doesn't it? An expert doesn't wait for you to stumble upon an issue. They see it on the horizon, they sound the alarm, and this is crucial, they show up with a plan. That proactive partnership, that's the real value. That's what you're actually paying them for. So how can you tell if your vendor is failing in this duty? Well, you start to see the hallmarks of a passive partner. They'll dodge any conversation that might have commercial blowback. They'll always wait for you to tell them about a problem. But here's the one I really want you to remember. If it's been 3 months or more and your vendor hasn't brought a single new risk to your attention, that's not good news. It doesn't mean your building is perfect. It means your vendor has stopped being an expert and has stopped looking. Okay, so we've gone deep on the three most important dimensions. Together, they make up a whopping 60% of the total score. But now, let's pull the camera back and look at the whole picture, because those three are part of a bigger 7-dimension framework that gives you that true 360-degree view of your relationship's health. Let's see how they all connect. I love how this table lays it all out. Think of it this way. The top three we just talked about, outcome alignment, performance delivery, and expert responsibilities, that's the strategic core. That's the engine of the car. It's all about the value and the integrity of the partnership. The other 4 dimensions, they're the supporting framework, the chassis, the wheels, the structure that lets that powerful engine actually do its job. And this visual just drives that point home. It shows how all 7 of these pieces are woven together. You simply can't have a healthy, high-performing strategic core if the supporting framework is weak. It all has to work in sync. And when it does, you get a view of your partnership's health that is so much deeper and more real than any simple performance metric could ever give you.
So what's the big idea here? It's really important to get this. Nobody is saying to get rid of your KPI dashboards. Not at all. The goal is to make them better, to augment them. You're adding this crucial layer of predictive behavioral insight that lets you see trouble coming miles away long before it ever hits your performance data. And that is how you protect your most important partnerships. So I'll leave you with this final thought, a question to take back to your team. Go look at your latest vendor reports. I mean, really look at them. And ask yourself, are these reports showing you the cold, hard data, the full picture with all its messy details and potential warnings? Or are they just telling you a nice story, the story they think you want to hear?